Kia ora, Year 12s. I'm back again. Actually, Year 13s, you might find this useful as well. I don't know. So I'm just going to go over the two-country model again, but this time I want to focus on how you use it to explain the impacts of trade. And apologies, I only have blue and red pens because I'm in Mr. Lecture's room. And sorry about the glare. So I have our two-country model from the last video that's looking at New Zealand importing cars from Japan, which is an illogical example, I would have thought. So I think you should be able to relate to that. So what we want to look at is how this would impact on different groups as a result of trade. So it's a very common thing, the impacts of trade and how it impacts on different groups. Also, again, if I go back to your next internal, which I will do a post on Moodle about, because I know some of you are a bit anxious, even though it's a wee while away. This is something you might want to use. The next internal, you've got quite a bit of choice as to what you do. So this model and using it to explain why, for example, we should sign a free trade deal with Japan is really good to explain that, but also then how signing that free trade group deal will impact on these different groups. So I haven't got the government here just because but I'm just going to go through it, and what I really want to focus on is how, if you've labelled everything really well, so the pre-trade price and then the trade price and the effect on quantity supplied and demanded in both countries, and you've got importing and exporting, then you actually have everything you need to really answer this, how these two countries trading with each other would impact on these four different groups. Things to again remember, they only trade with each other. So it's this assumption that these two countries can only trade with each other, and also that there is no currency conversion going on. We're just using the same relative price. The other thing to kind of point out here is that this model is kind of showing what if they were to trade, and also what if there were no barriers to trade? Because when you have barriers to trade, that could be, for example, a quota. So, in this model, I'm showing that we import this much from Japan. If we have a quota, then it might cut it in half. Say, well, no, you can only have half the amount of imports you have. So you can show that it's a little bit tricky, and usually just show it with one model. The other thing that we can show is an import tariff, a tax on imports. You could show that. You can show one on exports. I haven't shown you exports yet. You can show that, and I think that could be something that you might want to play around with for your internal if you want to. But the whole point is that we've sort of shown why two countries would trade. Once one country puts an import tariff on, so for example, New Zealand goes, we're going to put a tariff on cars, well, they can do that. But when you sign a free trade deal, if you put a tariff on a country's imports, then there's going to be retaliation. The other party's going to go, well, the milk powder you're sending us, or the beef, you have to pay a tariff on that too. So that does tend to happen in world trade, that if one country starts putting a tariff on, the other country starts to retaliate, and actually nobody ends up better off. Okay, some of you are thinking, we should tax the imports and the government can make money and the consumers will still be better off. But no, because it would be felt negatively in another market where a tariff would be put on, for example, export products. So we can get onto that later when we look at free trade versus protectionism, but I would keep it simple for today, and I'm just wanting to show you, okay, what if these two countries traded and there's no barriers to trade at all? They can just freely find a price to trade at and let it rip, let it happen. So I'm going to use this, and I'll show you how having good labels will help you to explain the effect on these different groups. So I can't really zoom in too close. I'll just try and speak loudly, and maybe you can read. So if I start with New Zealand consumers, you can start in any order you like, but I would just kind of start with them. We want some statements like, it's good, so I'm just going to do a smiley face, they're happy, this is positively affected, better off, that type of thing. And we want to go through the reasons why. And when I go through the reasons why, I just want to read off what's going on here. So what I'm going to talk about is they are happy, they're better off because price they pay is going to decrease. All right, so I'm talking about the price falling. You've got to get that across. And I'm going to talk about it's going from PNZ to PT. So I'm talking about the falling price, and I'm referring to my model in terms of what the price change is. Okay, and then I want to talk about, I could mention that's now more affordable. So that's good, it's more affordable, and as a result, the quantity demanded will increase. because I want to bring in the law of demand. Why not? Okay, you don't need to say the law of demand, it's too hard. But it's got cheaper. Okay, so the quantity demand will increase from, in this case, QNZ to Q2. I just use some different numbers here. You can do that, that's fine. All right, so it's cheaper and there is more available to purchase. Now, everything I've just said there, I just got from the model. I could just literally read off what is happening here. In terms of other things I could say there's more choice, variety, in terms of what we buy, because we've got more, can't spell, more variety, whatever. We're getting more imports from Japan, so there's likely to be more choice for different consumers in terms of what they need and want. If I go to New Zealand producers, I again have to look at my model and ask myself, is this good or is this bad or is this just like nothing? It's not good, because although a price decrease is good for them, for a New Zealand producer, it is not good. If you're making cars in New Zealand, the price you receive has now fallen. So I want to say it's not good. Okay, right, not good, don't do an unhappy face, it's not going to help the situation, but I'm just using it for illustration purposes. So the price they receive is going to decrease. Again, it's the same figures, PT to PNZ to PT. All right, so you stated that. Then you want to mention about it, decreases profitability, all that. And then as a result, the quantity supplied will decrease. Okay, because it's less profitable, there's less incentive to be producing cars in New Zealand. So the quantity supply will decrease from QNZ to Q1. Okay, so we've got the fact that the price has fallen, and we've got what from the model, it's about decreasing profitability. So they decrease their quantity supply, and you can comment that they're selling less. So it's quite a dark picture for a New Zealand producer of car. But you could argue you weren't very efficient in the first place, you were very expensive. So that's the New Zealand producers, and then it's a really good follow-on to employees of New Zealand producers, so workers, car manufacturing workers, that type of thing, because we would say here that they are also sad, not happy, worse off, because the ideas of decreased production, okay, or decreased QS on the model means that there is less need for workers to produce those cars. So we can talk about decreased demand for labour, car manufacturing, just to be precise. I mean, perhaps businesses that service these industries could be affected as well, but it's easier just to talk about the immediate problems. So therefore that means there's decreased jobs or employment. So the idea you lose your job or harder to get job, that type of thing, hours decrease, that type of thing. So that's why they're sad, and that's just, yes, this one here is not explicit to the model, but it relates to the effect on New Zealand producers. All right, then if we go to Japanese consumers, they too are not better off. If we have a look over here, I don't know how well you can see, the price in Japan has increased. So unlike New Zealand consumers, they're actually having to pay more. So this is not so good. So for them, unhappy face, right, the price they pay has increased from PJ, Japanese price, pre-trade, to PT, right? You have to read off your model. So that means that it's more expensive for them to buy a Japanese car. And, it's less affordable, that type of thing. It's not as cheap. So that means their quantity demanded will decrease because it's less expensive. It's more expensive. You can't afford it. So the quantity demanded will decrease. So there's less available. Less available sold in Japan. Okay, because they could have been having this much before, but what actually happens, kind of like not such a good thing, is that with trade, the Japanese producers of the cars are like, we don't need to just sell to the local market. We could actually sell to those New Zealand people for quite a higher price. So actually, Japanese people, if you want the car still, you're going to have to pay more, and there's not as many available for you to purchase because we're selling them to the New Zealanders. So it is true that there will be less cars available for Japanese consumers to buy, but also that they have to pay the world price effectively now, sorry, the trade price. And it's kind of like why butter and milk are so expensive in New Zealand, because there's actually less available for us to buy because it's now being exported overseas. And also New Zealand producers are like, if you want to have the milk and the cheese, you have to pay what the rest of the world is paying. And that's not always fair, but it is economics. So that's why they're not so happy. For the producers though, they're like totally happy. They're like, yeah, we get a higher price. So they're happy because the price they receive has now increased from PJ to PT. So while it's a bad thing for them, it's like really happy about that, stoked. So they're now going to get increased profitability, which means their quantity supply is going to increase. And so that's going to increase from QJ to Q3, I said over here. Okay, which means they sell more. Okay, which means their revenue goes up. Oh, I forgot to put it here, QD. So this would be from QJ to Q4 on the model. So you probably can't even see that, but yeah, I'm just referring to that change there. You should always integrate the model into your answer. And if you wanted to, you could talk about employment in the Japanese car manufacturing industry. It's going to go up. They're selling more. They're getting a higher price. Production's increasing. Therefore, the demand for labour in those markets is going to increase, although we all know that it's mostly done by automation, computers and stuff. So actually, it's probably not going to end up in a lot of jobs for people. But, you know, there would be other jobs created there. So therefore, it's a win for these people, the producers in Japan. And it's definitely a win for New Zealand consumers. And while you might be thinking it's a bit of a negative for the New Zealand producers and the factory workers, and obviously Japanese consumers, you've got to think bigger picture. They're saving money here on their cars, so what are they going to do with the money they save? They can save it, but they can also spend it. All right. Also, you know, yes, there could be GST collected on this. Here, yeah, there will be lost tax money collected and all that, so it's not good for the government. But here, you know, they're obviously going to do better at it, so it makes up for these guys having to pay more. So they might actually get jobs, you know, in this industry and high-paid jobs as a result. So it's not always, you know, only bad. There are good points, and you should focus on that. And then, of course, the other thing to think about is we're just looking at imports. If we were to open up to trade, this is New Zealand importing. There would be something that New Zealand can export as well, which is what I'm going to make the focus on my next video. If we export, in that case, the New Zealand producers who suffer here can actually gain. Although New Zealand consumers will lose, you know, overall we can all gain. It's not always like an immediate gain. It might be that you have to change jobs and that kind of thing, but there can be gains overall. All right. So have a look. Again, like my last video, there isn't any point just watching this. Do value your feedback. So definitely, you know, come have a chat, put a comment, send me an email. But if you're going to watch these, maybe go over the notes you've done in class or some workbook activities and try and use it to help you actually go through it. You know, pause at various bits, skip bits you don't think that are interesting, but do use it productively. Don't just watch and be like, oh, it's a good bedtime story. Okay, with that, I will say goodbye.